we had a talk the other week about the proposed sell-off of significant military assets around Australia, including these colonial era barracks in the inner cities in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Hobart, Adelaide, although Adelaide's one has already been transferred to the state government, I believe, and barracks in Perth as well. Don't know about Darwin. I mean, Larrakia and Darwin is pretty central. I can't imagine them selling that off. But when we talk about location, all right, we can point at a map all day long and things like this. Victoria Barracks in Sydney, in Paddington. So we just had a look at that previous article about a bloke who works in Paddington but can't afford to live there. Beautiful old sandstone colonial era main building, PT Green at the front. But this in the background is the Sydney Cricket Ground and the Sydney Football Stadium. All right, so if you're looking for, now I can't remember the aspect here, but I think the city is off this way, I believe. I mean, it's not far. It's I have walked from the CBD to Paddington because there's a hospital here. I thought, oh no, I'll walk until I catch a bus. I walked the wrong direction. Not the wrong direction. I just didn't see the right bus. So I walked the whole way. It wasn't excessive. It was long. But the point being, you've got SCG, SFS, you've got Moore Park, which is significant green space in the area. You used to have, I don't know if it's still there, State Athletics Centre. They called it ES Marks Field. Don't know if that's still there. They may have got rid of it when they built the Olympic Stadium. They also had, well, they have Fox Studios, or it's now Disney Studios, which, no, that's it over the back there, which actually used to be the Sydney Showgrounds. So there was actually quite a lot of open space as such in this area. Sydney Showgrounds, now they got moved out to Homebush when the Olympic site was being developed. They developed part of that into the showgrounds and basically kicked them out of, or they moved out of their traditional site, which then got turned into Fox Studios. So there's been plenty of open space in this area that's been nabbed up and redeveloped in the last 20 odd years anyway. The idea of taking these other heritage sites and destroying them, yeah. The idea, I guess, I suppose, depends on what side of the city you're on, they say. There's another barracks up in Parramatta that they're looking at selling off as well, and there's people who are going to say, look, you don't want to destroy the heritage. And a statement like a number of properties within the defence estate that really have their history as part of something in the past and not necessarily focused on the future comes across as a statement of heritage doesn't matter. We're going to get rid of them and redevelop them. And so the question is, what should they be turned into? Are they remnants? They are remnants of a past military age, yes, but there are certain elements of it that should be preserved for history. There was a brick bull ring, they called it. I think it was part of like a SAR yard slash abattoir slash meat processing slash whole bunch of things. Adelaide has some interesting elements to it, but there was a brick bull ring, sorry, and it was unique. I believe it was the only one of its type, either in South Australia or Australia. It was like really unique. A developer bought the site, and obviously because it was outside of Jepp's Cross, so it was used to be miles out from the city, but now it was sort of in the middle of suburbia, but still sitting on fairly waste land. There was a nearby small light aircraft training site that had, so there's plenty of aircraft flying over at low level, lots of aircraft noise. There's still industry in the areas around it. It was between two main roads. It wasn't a site that was necessarily ideal to build on for housing. The developer that bought it had trouble getting approval for the developments that they wanted to put down on the site. I think at the time it was reported that it was a pushback because there's too much of the heritage was being lost and not enough was being preserved, and so there were certain aspects of the site that needed effectively heritage protection. Until one day there was a mysterious fire that burnt the place down. And then, because it was unsafe, they had to bulldoze the entire site into the ground. Now, it was denied by the developer that they had anything to do with it, but Adelaide wasn't that big. There's not too many people who had. Most of the community wanted to keep the place. And there was still ways they could have worked around it, but no, in the end, they were certainly going to keep it as an active sale yards or anything like that. But in the end, a key part of South Australian heritage just got destroyed through neglect initially. And then the suburbs that they put in adjacent to the airport, people started complaining about aircraft traffic. And it's like, the airport had been there for close on 60 years at that, I think even longer than that. And the suburb hadn't. But no, they built a suburb basically right under the approach path for two active runways. And then people complaining about plane noise. Like, the airport's there. But it was one of the things that where there was the opportunity to preserve a significant historic site. No, do away with it. And that wasn't the only thing Adelaide destroyed in its desire to develop. Now, Adelaide has green zones, a green, what do they call it? A green belt, green buffer. Basically, there's actually protected zones that limit how far the city and suburbs can spread because of the way the city was set up. It basically puts a hard limit, not because the terrain's not viable. No, it's just a hard limit on how far the city's allowed to spread. So you then have this greenbelt jump to then a regional site, which is almost hard up. Now, in most other cities, that regional site would eventually become part of the city itself of extended suburbia. In Adelaide, no, you've got this greenbelt. It's a great idea, but it means that you then have to increase density inside that area faster. And so one of the other heritage unique sites was a landing site by Sir Kingsford Smith. And I don't know whether it was the first landing site of an aircraft in South Australia or that there was some really, really important aspect to Sir Kingsford Smith having landed in South Australia. And so this landing site effectively was little more than a paddock. But at the end of the day, it's a key part of Australia's aviation history. And for the sake of keeping it green space or open space, it could have been preserved. It wasn't like there was massive numbers of buildings or unique construction. It was just, hey, look, it's a place where aircraft can land or did land. It's important to Australia's history. Got built over. A suburb got plopped down on top of it. And the exact landing site was lost. They believe they put a park on top of it, but it wasn't really a park, and it certainly wasn't big enough to capture the entire heritage parts of the site. And there's a kids' playground on top of it. And so you go to the suburb now, or a couple of years after it's been built, and there's no reason it should stick out as to what took place there or what was important about it. So Australia's doesn't seem to protect its heritage that well. So yeah, I mean, people say that so these military sites should be turned open for housing. Now, this is obviously focused on Sydney's stuff, and you got some very stringent advocates for and against, and the idea that some people suggest that Victoria Barracks here should be torn down and we put in 40-story skyscrapers to inject diversity. Well, obviously this guy's got an ideological bent for things. That said, the idea that the suburb has only managed to put in 24 dwellings since 2011 census, yeah, something needs to be done. Your suburb is getting stagnant and more expensive, but to only have basically now, is that approving or actually building? I'm not 100% sure. But to only allow one building a year or one dwelling a year change in close on 15 years in an area like this does not make sense. Now, I mean, that's what he said. I don't know if that's the full figures. Clover Moore, obviously, yep, okay. Not often that a significant amount of inner city land becomes available, so any change consultation, but increased access to parkland, well, see, that's not a problem. I mean, the idea of turning that into parkland, I don't think anyone has an issue with. It's the heritage aspect of these structures. I don't know if that's part of it, but certainly of the barracks itself. As long as they can be preserved, I'm sure the idea of parkland, green space, public access, not an issue. I think the fear that people have is that the heritage aspects are going to be destroyed. So they're talking about a site out at Parramatta where there's issues and people are saying, look, are fighting over whether it should be turned into development or kept for public space. The whole site out there is heritage protected, so that limits, therefore, what can be done unless it can be done. Now, reading the comments, there's a lot of people like, oh no, we should destroy things, should not destroy things. There's people saying, well, look, heritage is important. Heritage is important.